Hello, welcome back, Dr. Jacob Towery. I am delighted to speak with you again. I like how we're doing this in a couple pieces. And
Yes.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I realized that I know how amazing you are, but not everyone knows. And I thought we might share with folks a little bit about like all the amazing things you do and have done. People may or may not know about your book. And you've been published in the New York Times and the Washington Post, Psychology Today, and other places. And I know you speak for our high schools and other parent groups as a expert in adolescent psychiatry. And what else?
Keep going. No, just kidding. What else?
What
Let's
else?
see.
I know
That
you.
might be the sum of all my accomplishments.
Yeah. Well, you teach at Stanford, right?
I teach at Stanford, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you teach in Dr. Burns' Tuesday group.
Uh-huh.
And you have a consultation that people join.
Yeah, I have a monthly free consultation group for people that want to do team with adolescents and their parents.
Yeah. And you have a vibrant life.
I do have a vibrant life. That's true.
Well, there's so much greatness that you're kind of putting out in the world, and I appreciate that.
No problem.
Well, last time we talked, you shared with us kind of how you became interested in this idea of consent, and then also some about the history of consent. And
Yeah.
and I know that when I've kind of enthusiastically shared this idea after learning about it from you. And one of the questions I've heard is like, well, can this be fun if you're, doing this consent piece, which if I understand correctly, you would suggest using it kind of like each step along the way. Maybe you could speak a little bit to that
Yes.
and to the question of, can this be fun? Is this going to like kill the mood? Or I don't really want to do that. I want to just, read body language. That's more exciting.
Yes. Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. I feel a little bit sad that there isn't a lot of good modeling in TV shows or movies on how to be consensual and how consent can be fun and sexy. So I hope that shows up at some point. But in the meantime, there's just less modeling out there. But I think that you're right that people have this notion that consent has to be really like dry and serious and robotic. So I think people's fear is that they'll say something like, "Can I kiss you now?" The person will be like, "Yes, you may kiss me," and like it will be really awful and not at all romantic or sexy. But it doesn't have to be that way. It's hard on an audio podcast because you can't see me and viewers can't see me. So I'll just have to describe what I might look like or what a person could look like,
Oh, that sounds
which is
great.
not as good as seeing it. But I think a lot of it is in the facial expressions, the eye contact, the smiling, the body language, but you can have fun with this. It really doesn't have to be serious. So while I'm a huge fan of asking for consent at each step along the way, I think it can be done in ways that are playful and sexy. So for example, even something like a hug, which I think in COVID times, one of the few perks of COVID is people are really learning that it's not great to just run up to someone right now and grab them. A lot of people don't want that right now. So it's good to ask first
Right.
for a number of things, including a hug. And so even a hug, you can kind of approach someone with a twinkle in your eye and a playful walk and be like, hey, would you like to share a hug? Or would you be interested in a hug? Or would you like a hug? Or one of my friends, particularly if it's someone he knows well, like has kind of this sheepish grin and is like, hug? So there's lots of ways to do it that aren't dry and boring. And with a kiss, yeah, like you could kind of smile at the person and be like, I'm thinking about kissing you right now. What are your thoughts about that? Or would you like to make out right now? Or would you enjoy sharing a kiss? Or you could be a little more bold. It could be something like, would you like to have a makeout session right now? Or something like that, where you're smiling, there's some playfulness to it. Yeah, it doesn't have to be dry. And I also want to address another common concern that men seem to have, which is that won't that look weak that you're asking for permission? Won't that look beta or submissive? And I
Oh,
think that's just way off base. I've given this a lot of thought. I think it's actually really easy for many men to just kind of push through and be sexual and not say anything and just nose down, plow through and just hope everyone's content with it. That I think actually doesn't take much courage and is the default. I think it actually takes more courage and bravery to pause action and be like, hey, do you want to make out right now? And know that you might get a no and just be content with that and be gracious about it. I think many women, in my experience, are appreciative of that, of the confidence that it takes to name what you're wanting, to ask about it, to be okay with a no. I think that shows confidence, it shows strength, it shows respect. So I think women actually, not all, I'm not gonna say all women, but I think many women really like that. And I think many people really like being asked rather than just assume that people can read their minds. So I wanted to head off that potential question that people would have, like, am I dooming myself by asking? No, you're not. You can get plenty of yeses out in the world. Not all, but you can get plenty of yeses out in the world by asking, and a lot of people really like it.
yeah, that's such a good point. And it does seem like it takes maybe a bit more bravery to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, great point. I love that. Jacob, I also recall that you practice and I think encourage people to kind of practice and maybe desensitize themselves to kind of along the lines of those asking those questions, verbalizing some of the words that we may not normally verbalize if we're kind of in the middle of an intimate moment with someone. I wonder if
Yes.
I'd love to hear more of your thoughts about that. I got to see you practicing that, but I'd love to hear your thoughts and for other people to kind of hear your thoughts and experience with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Given that I don't know who will ultimately in the future listen to this, I'll try to be somewhat sensitive to there might be a diversity of ages and audiences listening to this. I feel
Right.
quite comfortable using any possible word, so it's not my own embarrassment or reluctance. It's more I want to be sensitive to. I don't know who's listening, but I will say that as you're pointing out, waiting until you're in a really passionate, sexy moment, I think is a terrible time to all of a sudden try practicing something that's scary. It's a little bit like if you decided you wanted to learn martial arts, probably it's not the best time to start practicing your kicks and your punches when you're in an alley being attacked by a group of people. You should start it like months or years before when you're in a dojo and it's safe and you're comfortable, so that then when you're frightened and muscle memory kicks in, that's when you can punch and kick. Same thing here. You want to get to the point where it's really no big deal to be able to name various body parts and name sexual acts, and you feel more comfortable with it. So that doesn't mean you'll get to a place where there's no nervousness associated with it, but you can have far less nervousness than there is right now for most people. So that could mean by yourself in a mirror, you could name a bunch of different body parts that you'd be interested in touching on somebody, or licking, or kissing, or biting. You could name a bunch of different sexual acts that you'd be interested in getting up to with somebody, and practice saying things like, would you enjoy blank, or would you like to XYZ? And then mix and match different body parts and sexual acts. And I think if you do that over and over and over, eventually it's no more difficult to ask for what you want than it's just say something like, would you pass the salt? Or something like that.
Yeah, I love the way you frame that. And definitely, we don't want to learn our martial arts in the middle of a dark alley. And it's what a great idea to practice those things ahead of time. I notice that that there are a couple phrases that seem to be ones that you're using. And let me check if I've gotten them right, because maybe that would be helpful to people who want to kind of implement this idea to have some go-to phrases. I think that can be helpful. And I'm guessing you do too.
Sure.
I hear you saying, like, I'm interested in whatever. What do you think of that? Like, I'm interested in kissing you. What do you think of that? Would you enjoy that? Would you like to something? So I'm noticing, would you enjoy, and would you like, and what do you think of that? Am I getting those right? And are there others, or those kind of the...
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to give credit to my friend Brian O'Connell, who does and has done a lot of workshops related to consent. And something that he taught me a number of years ago is that if you ask someone, can I do something? Can I kiss you? Can I fondle you? Can I have sex with you? It's kind of like saying, can I do this thing to you that I want to do that you may not be that interested in? Can I use you as an object for my own pleasure? That's tolerable, but I don't think it's as good as ascertaining if someone else would also enjoy doing the thing you want to do. Because I think you can have win-win scenarios where you're doing something you're enjoying and someone else is also doing something that they're enjoying. That's, I think, what we should strive for, is where both people's pleasure is prioritized and not just one person's.
Love
So
that.
you're raising the bar on what you're going for when you ask, would you enjoy blank? Instead of, could I get away with doing this thing to you that I want? Will you tolerate me, pressing my lips on you? It's instead saying, like, would you enjoy us kissing together? And it's a higher bar, and I think it's a better bar, because then you're conveying to the other person that what they want matters too. They're not just an object. They're another human whose feelings and desires and priorities matter also. And then if you get a hell yes, you can enjoy the experience more, knowing that it's something you're both wanting instead of something the other person's putting up with.
Yeah, it seems so simple and super powerful. It's incredible. I love it. And then I think that
Yeah,
change
thank you.
that's such a powerful change. I really appreciate you putting that language out there, and making it clear, kind of clarifying like it matters, which that word choice matters there.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of times people talk about getting permission, and it's true that part of what we're doing with consent is we're getting permission so that we're not just pushing our own agenda on other people. But it can be better than that. It can be using these conversations as a way of finding out what the other person desires and wants and is excited about, and as a springboard to better sex and more fun hookups, if you're learning what the other person actually wants instead of just what you can get away with or what they'll tolerate.
Yeah, and maybe more respectful, loving, caring intimacy.
For sure, yes.
um, well, when I was thinking about this, Jacob, and thinking about you have this amazing perspective, and you're a man, and you've you know uh, experienced that from that perspective, and it's been so amazing hearing you talk about it from that perspective. And as a woman, I've thought about, wow, well, what will happen for women in this situation? Because I grew up in the no means no. It was my responsibility to say no. um
Yeah.
and um Also, there's a dynamic that the woman can be. You kind of talked about last time we were talking about being a victim, and kind of victim blaming, that potential. I think that um, it's easier to allow yourself to have the like take the responsibility out of your hands if you're the woman and we're operating kind of in no means no. um or if
Uh-huh.
or if we're not doing consent, like, I'm not sure I want to kiss the person, but they kind of lean in and kiss me and I let them. And um but if someone says, would you enjoy kissing me, well, then I have to think about, like, would I enjoy it, or am I just kind of like, I'm going along with it? Like, it's in some ways maybe a higher bar for the woman as well. I wonder if you have any thoughts about
Yeah.
that. Those are couple of the thoughts that came
No,
to me. Yeah.
I think you're right. I do think that um, one of the few challenge. I don't know. I don't want to say drawback, but I guess I'll say that for lack of a better word. But there's probably a better word out there. One of the few drawbacks of consent is it does mean that if you're going to be a human participating in these kinds of conversations, you do need to get better at tuning in to your own wants and desires and being introspective enough to determine what do I actually want in a given moment. And that's not something that everybody has a lot of practice with. I would
Sure.
argue that in America, a lot of people are given this kind of puritanical message that pleasure should not be a high priority. So why would you even bother thinking about what would give you pleasure? But as someone who identifies as sex positive, I think that pleasure can in itself be a great goal, particularly if you're doing it in a way that's not hurting other people. I think pleasure is a fabulous goal. But it takes practice learning to tune in and be like, well, what would be pleasurable for me? What do I want to do? What would be exciting for me? What would I want to get up to with this person? So that means if you're someone who um, is historically a people pleaser and or codependent and or is used to thinking, well, what do other people want? Uh, this could be a challenge for you to really tune in and ask yourself, what are my motivations here? If I say yes, am I saying yes because this other person wants me to do this thing? If so, please don't do it. Please say no. And if your motivation is because you want to do it for whatever reason, because you're excited about it or interested or curious or you think it would be pleasurable, then a yes could be a great answer. So it does involve learning how to differentiate between those motives. And I think another group of people where this is relevant is for people who tend to dissociate and kind of freeze or go out of their body. Learning how to slow things down before answering is really great. I can recall a date I went on a while ago where I was very enthusiastically verbally consensual. We were stone cold sober. I was asking every step of the way. And then later, like a couple days later, the person told me that they had been dissociating and they had said yes, but really like they weren't like fully present.
Mm.
And I felt a little bad about it, but truthfully, I didn't actually feel that bad because I had been like incredibly conscientious about pausing, asking at each step of the way. We were totally sober. I wasn't pushy. And so we actually had a really good conversation where I was like, if you're soberly saying yes, enthusiastically you want to do this thing, you might want to work on not doing that. If you're really a no, you may need to practice like if you're at all ambivalent, like slow it down and like say, let's end the date early, or let's go for, I want to go on a walk for a little bit and then come back, or let's do something else that's not at all sexual or romantic, and let's let's play a board game, or let's talk, or let's put a bunch of clothes on and sit 8 feet away from each other, something, whatever it takes, so that you can get in a headspace where you're fully grounded and you're fully present, and so that when you say yes, it's a real yes. But for those people who might say yes when they're not really yes, that's on you, I think, to work on and to practice only saying yes when you're truly and really a yes.
Yeah, I think this bumps up the responsibility and accountability, and probably potentially like the intimacy and connection for both people and together.
It's
Do you see,
true.
do you see it
Yeah.
that
And I
way?
think it forces you, I think that's true. And I think it forces people to kind of grow as humans, because we're never going to be able to read each other's minds. And I think the best we're going to be able to do is integrate the other person's words and their body language. That's the best we're going to get. I don't think we're going to get better than that. So each person needs to learn how to be somewhat congruent with what they're wanting, and at a minimum, I think their words need to match what they're wanting. So it does mean we have to grow as people and get more in touch with what we're wanting.
Yeah, I think that's so great. What a great opportunity for us to grow in a way that we might be, a little bit afraid of, but super powerful for us.
Yeah.
Uh,
Another couple really quick points I want to make
yeah.
while I have the microphone, the megaphone.
Yay.
There's a great video about consent. If you Google consent video, TEA consent video,
Oh, yes.
some points that may or may not be obvious. One is consent ought to be fluid and revocable, which means even if someone says yes, they want to do a particular sexual act, they can change their mind at any time, and that's okay. And it's good if you're the other person to just graciously back off and accept that they're not wanting to do that thing anymore. It's also important, if you ask for something and you get a no, don't be pushy. Don't press the person to explain why they're a no. Don't keep asking over and over. Just graciously accept that they're a no. You might even say something like, no problem, thanks for taking care of yourself. And just let them have their no, and don't try to make them feel bad about it or get them to change their mind. Another thing that I think is kind of obvious, but is I think not obvious to a lot of people, is if someone says yes, they're consenting to like come back to your room or come back to your place or kiss you, that doesn't mean they're consenting to have sex with you. That doesn't mean they're consenting to have oral sex with you. Just because someone consents to one thing, that doesn't mean they're consenting to anything else. So it's really, really, really important to check in with people at every single step of escalation and see if they're wanting this new thing, instead of just assuming that people are a yes.
Excellent point. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
No problem.
I love that. And I'm glad you mentioned, kind of how to deal with a no, because I was wanting to ask you that. Yeah. I like the thanks for taking care of yourself, and not pushing and not kind of demanding a response or like a reason explanation.
Yeah. Yep. No
Yeah,
problem.
I'm imagining that could be kind of an awkward, difficult moment for someone who's asked and gets a no, maybe on both sides.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I should go in about 2 minutes. I think that at the risk of making a generalization, I think a lot of girls and women are socialized to say yes, and are encouraged to say yes and to sacrifice their own wants in the service of pleasing others. And so there can be a temptation, if you're someone who was raised as a girl or woman, to explain your no, or justify your no. But that's, in my opinion, it's really unnecessary. I would like us to all live in a world where someone says, no thanks, and that's good enough. There's no need for further explanation or justification or rationalization. It's just, okay, cool, this person doesn't want to do this thing right now, that's fine, and that's it. And then for the person who's asking, it does involve some self-discipline, that if you're having a lot of disappointment or upset that you're getting a no, keep that to yourself for now and be gracious and learn how to be polite and be like, yeah, that's cool, no problem. And then if you need to go off by yourself and sulk and be disappointed, that's fine. Just do it away from the other person and let them have their space. And then, if as someone who's gotten rejected numerous times, you can learn how to get better and better at rejection, and to the point where it doesn't really bother you. You don't have to take it personally. You can tell yourself there's all sorts of reasons the person might be a no, and it doesn't have to ruin your day.
Yeah.
It just means they're a no to that thing, and that's okay. So it's good to practice being gracious about that.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Jacob Towery, I am so grateful to you for sharing this information with me and everyone else who's able to listen, and for being an amazing role model in this as a human being and a man, and someone who could make something respectful and fun.
Yeah, thank you. I feel a little embarrassed to respond by saying that when you said I'm a role model, I flash back to all the many mistakes I've made and ways I've screwed up and people I've hurt. So I don't know if I always think of myself as a role model, but I at least attempt to have learned from my many mistakes and try to do better in the future. So I hope I can at least model in that respect.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And I think you saying that will probably help people feel, more comfortable and like they can relate to you, because there are probably other people in the world who have made mistakes and want to kind of model moving forward in this way, and they want to continue to learn and grow and be, amazing, just like what you're doing. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you for the kind words.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me and share, with the world this super cool information. I'm excited for other people to hear your experience and wisdom and humility, and some specifics on this area. Super excited, and thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. This was fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And I appreciate you suggesting that T video. I'll put that in the notes, as well as a link to your website if people want to find you. I think we mentioned, many of like amazing things that you've done. And of course, in addition, you've helped many people heal from depression and anxiety and habits, and improve relationships, and all sorts of things. So there might be people who want to do that work with you. More people.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. That sounds great.
All right. Have a great.
I think the leaf blowers are telling me our time's up.
Of course. Yes. Well, have a great day, and much appreciation. Take care.
You too. Thanks, Leigh. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.